The conversation started in the living room on a Saturday morning. Clara was standing next to a bookshelf with her arms crossed. I, Marcos, was sitting on the sofa adjusting my sneakers, as if I were going to go for a run. "I want a divorce," she said without beating around the bush. I stayed still with the laces in my hand. "Can you repeat that?" I asked, not because I hadn't heard her, but because I needed a second. Clara rolled her eyes. "Come on, Marcos. You had to see it coming. What we have has been dead for years." I stood up slowly. "We've argued, yes, but that's not the same as being dead. You're predictable." She snapped with a tone of annoyance. "I know what you're going to say before you say it. Everything about you is routine, safe, boring." I looked at her without raising my voice, and that's why you're leaving. She smiled as if it bothered her that I didn't react. "That's why I stopped wanting to come home." I shouted it. I didn't throw anything. "Then, at last you'll see how strong boring can be," I told her. Her face changed for an instant, something like shame. I noticed it. "What is that supposed to mean?" she asked, tightening her arms more against her chest. "That I'm not going to be your springboard. If you finished, finish for real. But don't disguise it as if you were doing me a favor." Clara let out a short laugh. Bitter. "Ah, now you're going to play the victim." "No," I replied, taking one step closer. "I'm not the victim. I'm the one who paid the mortgage, the one who cooked on Sundays, the one who stayed when everything got complicated while you disappeared." That I disappeared. She raised her voice, flushed. "You stopped trying." I said, "You got bored and decided that was enough to prepare your exit without talking to me." "I haven't been unfaithful to you," she spat. I didn't say that, I replied. "But preparing your escape as if it were a weekend plan is another form of betrayal." Clara turned and started pacing from side to side. "You always twist everything. I need something real. Emotion, passion. Here I feel invisible. You chose to feel invisible." I told her. "I didn't stop seeing you. You stopped being there." She stood looking out the window with her jaw tense. Then she dropped a phrase that made it clear this wasn't an outburst. "I've already talked to a lawyer." She wasn't testing the waters. She was executing. "I imagine it." I replied, "You've been treating me like a stranger for months." "I thought you would fight for us." She murmured, "Lower." "I'm not going to fight for someone who already has their parachute on." The silence stretched. I passed by her side, picked up the keys from the table, and went toward the door. "You're free, Clara," I said without looking at her. "We'll see how exciting it feels when the euphoria wears off." I left the house we had bought together and closed the door. The air outside seemed lighter, but I also knew clearly that what was coming wasn't a quick ending. I drove aimlessly for a while without music. The streets were almost empty. I realized where I was when I passed in front of a roadside bar on the way out toward Mostel's. One that Clara and I used to go to some Sundays. I wasn't furious. What I felt was a constant pressure in my chest, as if my body was slow to accept what had just happened. "You're predictable. What we have is dead." I repeated that to myself in a low voice, more out of disbelief than anger. Really, being constant was a defect. I had been the one who took care of the practical things when she couldn't, the one who held the basics. I parked behind a public high school on a side where there usually wasn't anyone. I turned off the engine and stayed still. There the question hit me. How long had I been pretending? How many dinners with a smile that wasn't real? How many I love yous out of habit? The phone vibrated in the passenger seat. It wasn't Clara. It was a weather alert, sharp drop in temperature. I couldn't help thinking that the drop had already arrived, only I hadn't accepted it yet. A few months later, I found myself sitting in front of a table in a courthouse with a suit that felt stiff and the sensation of listening to strangers discuss my life. Clara was on the other side, dressed in white, next to her lawyer Victor Seabrian with a confident tone, almost mechanical. "Your Honor, this is a clear case of emotional abandonment," he was saying. "My client has endured for years a relationship in which Mr. Rebus, although he fulfilled materially, has shown himself absent in the affective." She felt invisible. It is reprehensible that she seeks her freedom. Clara looked at me for an instant and smiled with that confidence of someone who believes they have already won. My lawyer Alvaro Medina A round 60 stood up calmly. He had a thick folder. "With all due respect, Your Honor," he began. "We are not here to debate feelings. We are here to establish facts." He opened a folder and went straight. "For 10 years, Mr. Rebus sustained the home, paid the mortgage, assumed loans, expenses and supplies, took charge of the accounts. He maintained stability in periods of unemployment of Mrs. Rivas. He was leaving documents on the table, statements, invoices, receipts, declarations, all in his name and paid on time." He added, "And we also provide messages where Mrs. Rivas comments to friends that her husband seemed too stable and not exciting enough, and that she missed uncertainty." The courtroom fell silent. Clara shifted in her chair. Alvaro looked at the judge. "Mrs. Rivas has the right to divorce, of course, but what does not correspond is to reward abandonment and turn it into a patrimonial advantage. The home was built, maintained, and sustained by my client. We ask that the division reflect conduct and real contribution." Clara's lawyer tried to intervene, but Judge Salas raised her hand. "I have heard enough," she said, and quickly reviewed the papers. Then she spoke slowly, without drama. "In the division of assets, the history, conduct, and contribution are valued. Mr. Rebus has demonstrated consistency, responsibility, and compliance. Mrs. Rivas, your decision to end the marriage is not on trial. What is on trial is your claim to leave preserving independence and at the same time benefiting from the economic stability provided by your spouse." Clara blinked as if it didn't fit. "The exclusive ownership of the home is attributed to Mr. Rebus with immediate effect. Mrs. Rivas must vacate it within a period of 14 days. Clara's security unraveled. In a second, she leaned toward her lawyer, whispering angrily, but it no longer mattered. The judge concluded the session. I stood up, buttoned my jacket, and nodded respectfully before leaving. As I passed by Clara, she grabbed my arm. "Marcos, this isn't fair," she told me through clenched teeth. I stopped just long enough to look at her. "It's not justice," I replied. "It's just that you're not used to seeing it fall on someone else's side." I pulled away and continued walking toward the exit. Without euphoria, just with the clear sensation that for the first time in a long time the weight was starting to loosen. 2 years after the trial, my life was different. Not by luck, but by decisions. The house was still mine, but it was no longer ours, and I no longer lived thinking about what was missing. Now I was with Irene. We had built a quiet routine, without strange twists. Irene had a direct way of being in the world kind, but without naivety. That afternoon I was on the porch finishing watering some plants that she had put months before. Low music could be heard from inside, and the normal sound of the house when everything is in order. The doorbell rang twice in a row, as if the person outside was afraid they wouldn't open. I dried my hands and went to the door. It was Clara. She had her hair tied up, her face without makeup, and a tired gesture that I didn't remember. She didn't seem to come to argue, but neither did she seem to come to apologize. She really seemed to come because she had nowhere else to go. I opened just enough without stepping aside. "Hello, Marcos," she said with a small smile. "It's been a while," I replied. 2 years, she nodded. "I've thought a lot. I know I was harsh, selfish, but these 2 years have served me to see everything clearly." Her eyes moved over my shoulder, searching the hallway, the house, any sign of what was no longer hers. "I haven't connected with anyone like with you," she continued, "with no one, and I know you've moved on." I said nothing, but Marcos, her voice trembled just enough to try to open a door. "I haven't loved anyone in all this time like I loved you, and I don't think I'll love like that again." I looked at her without surprise. "You like being adored." I said, "You like feeling chosen. But loving isn't that. Loving is built, and you traded it for impulse as soon as you got bored." Clara swallowed. Her eyes moistened, but it wasn't enough to erase the rest. "I just wanted to talk," she insisted. "Have something one day without labels. 2 people who were something." I breathed deeply. I wasn't angry. What I had was clarity. "I don't hate you," I told her, "but I don't owe you dinner because you're alone." She stood rigid. "Are you serious?" "Yes," I replied. "I don't wish you anything bad, Clara, but I don't want you back." Her face changed quickly from pain to anger. "You're going to regret it, Marcos." "You'll see." I nodded once without arguing. "Maybe, but not today." I closed the door and locked it. I didn't feel empty. I felt order. I turned and went back where Irene was. Her voice could be heard, and the normal sound of plates and cutlery. Clara stayed outside, and for the first time I didn't stay trapped in what she wanted. The next morning, at 8 o'clock sharp, I was in the office. It wasn't the same job or the same place as before. I had moved to another area of Madrid and had set up my own project with a small team. At that time, the atmosphere was silent, almost methodical, keyboards, coffee, people coming in calmly. At 9:30, I heard quick heels in the hallway. That type of step that doesn't ask permission. I looked up. Clara entered as if she had the right. This time she was dressed up, hair loose, gloss on her lips, a jacket she used to wear when she wanted to impress. But the eyes were the same as the day before, tired, tense, seeking control. My assistant Nuria stood up nervously from the outside desk. "Sorry, Marcos." She came straight in. "It's okay," I told her without losing calm. "Leave us for a moment." Nuria hesitated, looking at both of us, and then left not convinced. I leaned on the edge of the desk with my arms crossed. "You shouldn't be here." Clara lowered her voice as if the glass walls bothered her. "I needed to see you. Yesterday I didn't say everything." "Yesterday you said too much," I replied. She approached the desk and, without asking permission, ran her fingers over a photo frame. Irene and I in a winery laughing. Clara saw it and looked away quickly, as if it bothered her that I had proof of a life without her. "I know I ruined it," she said, now softer, "but I'm not coming to cause problems. It's that I haven't been well. I've been very alone." I noticed movement on the other side of the glass. Some colleague had looked and then pretended to work. "You can't come here," I told her, "neither to this place nor to this version of my life." Clara frowned, as if she really didn't understand. "I'm not trying to pressure you, just hesitation. I need you to listen to me." "This isn't listening." I cut. "This is pity wrapped in perfume and memories. And it doesn't work here." Her expression hardened. "I'm not playing with you, sure?" I asked. "You say you're alone, but what you want isn't me. Do you want the security I gave you? Do you want to feel important again? Because outside it hasn't gone as you thought." Clara stayed silent. "This Irene isn't your rival." I added calmer. "She's the person who taught me what a relationship is like when it doesn't seem like a competition." Clara clenched her jaw and then let out what really came out. "Do you really think this is going to last? That she won't get tired of your routine too?" I didn't blink. "I don't need eternal promises," I said. "I just need someone who chooses me without conditions." For a second, only the hum of the air conditioning was heard. Clara readjusted her jacket as if she wanted to recover dignity. "You'll remember this moment," she said. "When she leaves and everything falls apart for you, remember that I tried." She turned and left with her heels hitting the floor harder than before, as if she wanted everyone to know she was leaving of her own free will. My assistant poked her head in after a while. "Everything okay?" "Yes," I replied. "She's not coming back." And I wanted to believe it, but when night came at home, that usual tranquility was strange, not out of fear, but because of an idea that stuck with me late. I never told Clara where I worked. That night, I stayed wandering around the house without doing anything useful. Clara's visit to the office didn't fit. It wasn't coincidence. I hadn't told her where I was, nor did she have reason to know. That meant she had searched or followed me. Irene texted me, "Honey, I'm leaving Pilates late. Do you want me to stop by somewhere for dinner?" I stared at the message longer than necessary. Irene knew nothing about Clara. I hadn't told her so as not to burden her with something that in theory was already closed. At that moment, I understood it had been a mistake. I replied, "Dinner doesn't matter. Don't stop anywhere. Come straight home." Irene wrote, "Okay." And that's where it stayed. I put away the phone, checked locks, looked at the porch camera, and checked things I hadn't checked in months. I wasn't scared for myself. I was alert for her. Irene trusted people, opened doors, and Clara was good, entering where others didn't see the danger. I waited by the window until I heard the car and the key. Irene came in, and I tried to explain without dramatizing. I told her that Clara had shown up first at home and then at my office, and that I didn't understand how she had gotten the address. Irene listened in silence, with her jaw clenched. "And why didn't you tell me before?" she asked. More hurt than angry, because I thought she would go away, I replied, "I was wrong." Irene nodded. "Without more. If she shows up again, I'm not going to act like she doesn't exist," she said. "But I'm not going to let her set our pace either." That calmed me a bit. It lasted until the next morning. The day started normal. Coffee, light coming in through the kitchen, the house silent. I was with the phone in hand when I saw the first message on social media. It didn't come with my name or Irene's, but it was her. A photo that I had taken of her on a trip to Cantabria. Irene smiling in front of a mural. I recognized it instantly. The text said something like, "How easy it is to talk about self-esteem when you dedicate yourself to getting into other people's relationships. Ask how many lives she has destroyed." Then I saw the comments. People I didn't know pining, as if they had proof. That fake guru vibe, another homewrecker. Be careful with her. I kept scrolling. There was another post with the same retouch photo. This time the name of the center where Irene taught classes was visible enough. It wasn't a direct tag, but it was obvious. A dry heat rose up my neck. It was too precise to be a random troll. It was an attack made to hurt and to spread. I got private messages from acquaintances and people from Irene's studio circle. "Hey, is this true? Something weird is going around with a photo of Irene. We're trying to remove tags." Irene hadn't seen it yet. She was upstairs showering. I got on the laptop and started saving evidence, screenshots, links, users, times, everything. I didn't know if Clara had created the accounts or she was using other people, but the style was recognizable: accusation without names, insinuation without proof, enough poison to sow doubt and make it seem like a warning. When Irene came down, it was already too late. She sawed herself on her phone. Before I could explain properly, she stood still. "I've already seen it," she said, without raising her voice. I asked her to sit. She didn't want to. She paced the kitchen, as if stopping would force her to feel too much. "I don't know these people," she said. "They're sharing my face, my photo, and talking as if they knew something about me. Who does this?" "Clara," I replied. "I have no doubts." Irene looked at me, and what was on her face wasn't just fear. It was a question that hurt. "Did you know what she was like?" "Yes," I admitted, "and I should have warned you before." Irene pressed her lips and nodded slowly. "Then, let's not let it go," she said, "because if she thinks she can use me to get to you, she's going to continue." Mid-morning, we met in a cafeteria near the park, a quiet place that Irene knew well. She didn't touch the tea. She had her hands together on the table and white knuckles. "Yesterday, she came to my studio," she said suddenly. I leaned forward. "What?" A colleague saw her from inside. She stayed outside looking as if she was waiting for something and left. The same cold anger from the night before rose in me. "This isn't about the past," Irene continued. "It's about control." I nodded. "She wants to scare you. And if she breaks you, then I go back to her plan." Irene held my gaze. "I don't want you to tell me not to worry. I want us to do something." I explained what I had already saved. Screenshots, links, times. I told her we could talk to a lawyer, and if confirmed, go for defamation and harassment. Irene breathed deeply, and for the first time since she sat down, lowered her shoulders a bit. "Okay," she said, "but there's one more thing." She leaned toward me. "If you take it, she's going to deny everything. She's going to play the victim. She's going to say we're attacking her." "I know," I replied. Irene looked toward the street, thoughtfully, and then back at me. "Let me talk to her." No came out of my mouth too quickly. Irene didn't get upset. "Listen, if it's me, she's going to want to convince me. She's going to get confident. She's going to talk too much." I stayed silent. I didn't like it, but I understood the logic. "I'm not going alone without measures," she added. "I'll record it and you'll be nearby, but not inside. If this ends in court, we need clear evidence." It cost me to nod, but I nodded. "Okay," I said, "but we do it properly without improvising." Irene squeezed my hand over the table. We're not going to let her win, she said. And at that moment, I had no doubt about something. Clara no longer sought to come back. She sought to break. That same day we agreed on the meeting. Irene wrote from an account that Clara could see without suspecting. A short message, without threat, without direct accusation, just enough to attract her. Clara accepted quickly. At the agreed time, I stayed parked 2 streets from the cafeteria. It wasn't surveillance out of paranoia. It was a plan. Irene went in alone. The minutes became long. I looked at the door every time someone entered or left. I forced myself not to jump ahead. If Irene came out early, bad sign. If it took too long, also almost an hour passed. Then I saw her come out. She walked straight. She wasn't in a hurry, but she didn't hesitate either. When she got to the car, she sat and closed the door. She stayed a second looking ahead, and then let out the air as if she had been holding it since she entered. She said everything. She told me. I turned toward her. What? Irene took out her phone. She admitted it. The profiles, the posts, coming to the studio. She said everything with a calmness that scares. You recorded it. Irene nodded and showed me the screen. Audio. Clear. Her voice is heard and everything is understood. I stared at the phone without speaking. Not out of surprise, out of confirmation. Irene touched my arm. Don't go blank now, she said. This was what we needed. I nodded slowly. I knew the worst hadn't passed yet, because Clara, when she felt cornered in retreat, she changed method. And that same night, we confirmed it. It was just after 9 at night when the doorbell rang. We were on the sofa, the movie on, but without real attention. Irene had her head resting on my shoulder. The doorbell rang once, and immediately another stronger. We looked at each other. No need to speak. Irene got up first. She wasn't nervous, or at least she didn't seem it. She walked toward the door calmly and opened it. Clara was there. She was dressed in a way, as if trying to seem like another person. Leather skirt, too intense perfume, marked makeup. But what gave everything away wasn't the clothes. It was the eyes. She had the look of someone who comes to impose something, not to ask. Before Clara said anything, Irene smiled and raised her voice toward the inside. Honey, your ex is here, and it doesn't seem like she's come and say hello. I got up and went to the entrance without hurry. Clara alternated her gaze between Irene and me, looking for the crack she hadn't found anywhere else. Marcos, can we talk alone? She said. No, I replied. I took out the phone, opened the audio, and pressed play. Clara's voice filled the doorframe clearly. It was heard without doubts, the essential that she had created the post, that she had followed Irene, that her intention was to provoke and break the relationship so that I would become available again. Clara stood still, her face tensed and then pale. You recorded me? She said, almost breathless. No, I replied. Did she record me? Irene didn't move. Clara tried to recover quickly, as she always did when something turned against her. This is illegal. It's not in a case of harassment and defamation when the recording is made by one of the people participating in the conversation. I said, without raising my voice. And whether you like it or not, this has a path. Clara clenched her teeth. You're making a mistake. She's not who you think. I looked at her without blinking. I know perfectly well who Irene is, and I also know who you are. Clara swallowed, and for the first time in all this time, she sounded truly broken. I still love you. My voice didn't tremble. I didn't stop playing the audio and took a step inside. Don't show up here again. I added, not at my house, not at my work, not near Irene. Clara opened her mouth as if to argue, but nothing useful came out. She looked at Irene, then at me, and her gesture changed contained rage. You're going to regret it. She let out already without tears. Irene just held her gaze. Clara expected Irene to shrink. It didn't happen. I closed the door, locked it. The sound was clean, definitive. We stayed a second in silence in the hallway. Irene looked at me as if she wanted to confirm I wasn't going to give in out of tiredness. It's done, she said. No, I replied. Now we close it properly. The next day we contacted a lawyer and presented everything. Screenshots of the posts, messages, testimonies from the studio, and the full audio. We didn't try arrangements. Clara had already crossed too many lines. The process was faster than I expected because this time there were direct proofs. Clara tried to delete accounts and remove posts, but that didn't undo what already spread nor cancel the damage. When the hearing came, Clara wasn't able to maintain the same confidence as in the divorce. She sat with her gaze down, quiet, without that smile she used to provoke. The judge listened to the audio, reviewed the reports, and gave the resolution without beating around the bush, restraining order and measures for defamation. In addition, the stalking conduct was recorded. Clara didn't argue in the room. She just pressed her lips and stared at the table as if she finally understood that strategy had no way out. After that, she disappeared from our environment. There was no goodbye, no final message. She left the city and didn't appear again. I didn't feel victory. I felt closure. As the weeks passed, the house recovered its normality. Irene returned to the studio, without looking over her shoulder all the time. I stopped checking locks as if expecting something. We didn't talk about it every day. We didn't turn it into a topic. It was precisely what Clara had wanted, to occupy space. We didn't give it to her. Months later, one afternoon with nothing special, we went to a viewpoint outside the city. It wasn't a movie place. It was simply quiet. We brought a blanket and some food. We sat for a while, without need to fill the silence. I took a ring out of my pocket. Irene looked at me as if it didn't surprise her, but still her eyes moistened. Not because we're perfect, I told her, but because when they've tried to break us, we've done the opposite. Stay firm. Irene nodded. Yes, she replied. I put the ring on her. We hugged without spectacle, like two people who had gone through something unpleasant and had decided to move forward without dragging it. And finally what remained of Clara was just that, something that happened and ended,